Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Nonprofit Coach with Ted Hart, the most listened to internet radio show in the nonprofit sector, dedicated to helping your charity succeed. It's no secret that combining online and offline techniques is the key to modern-day fundraising success, and practical advice is what you need. The Nonprofit Coach with Ted Hart is the perfect landing point to learn from experts around the world who provide advice you can use. Ted Hart is without a doubt one of the foremost nonprofit thought leaders. Also a successful author, his books range from successful online fundraising to the use of social media and how to make your nonprofit green. Guests on the Nonprofit Coach are leaders in their field who share tips and trade secrets for nonprofit management and fundraising success. Ted lectures around the world, but now he's here for you. From the latest in charity news, technology, fundraising, and social networking, Ted and his guests help you and your organization move to greater levels of efficiency and fundraising success. This is a live call-in show. Add your voice by calling 347-324-3080. After the show, you can find all our podcasts at tedhart.com. Click on Radio. Don't forget to dial 347-324-3080. Now, welcome the host of the Nonprofit Coach, Ted Hart.
And welcome to this latest edition of the Nonprofit Coach. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Nonprofit Coach today. We've got a very important show for you. Clint O'Brien is back, and he's been here on the show several times, always a very popular guest here on the Nonprofit Coach. But today he's coming to us from Engaging Networks, and this is the day for you to really learn all about how you can succeed with social fundraising. Now, here on the Nonprofit Coach, as always, this is a live call-in show, so you can call in and ask questions. A lot of people like to ask questions over in the chat room, so you can join us questions there, or you can email me your questions today at tedhart@tedhart.com. As always, here on the Nonprofit Coach, we start with Page One News. Here on the Nonprofit Coach, as you know, we're a fan of the Google nonprofit program. Very impressed by an organization that would provide so many free services to the nonprofit sector, particularly smaller nonprofits that often don't have the budget to be able to succeed. Here on Page One, I do want to provide you a little bit more information. During the show today, as we often do, we will provide tips and hints on how you can succeed with the Google for Nonprofits program. But I do often get a lot of emails from around the world wondering where this program is actually in place. And so if you are listening to us today from Australia, Canada, the Czech Republic, England, France, Hungary, Japan, New Zealand, Poland, Slovakia, Wales, or the United States, then you are in luck. These are countries where nonprofit organizations can receive full benefits of the Google for Nonprofits program. You do need to register, and details are available at google.com/nonprofits. There are specific registration details for each country. They do want you to know over at Google that these are for nonprofit organizations, not for governmental entities or organizations, hospitals or healthcare organizations, schools, child care centers, academic institutions, or universities are asked instead to register through Google in Education as the program. Lots of benefits that are available. We'll share a little bit more about that, as we often do here on the Nonprofit Coach, urging you to save money where you can and to access the excellent services that are available through Google. With that, we're going to make sure we've got lots of time for Clint O'Brien to share all of his information with us today, so we're going to make an early start of Page 2. Clint O'Brien has been a leader in the nonprofit sector for online engagements for many, many years. He is now serving as Chief Operating Officer of software company Engaging Networks, which you can find at engagingnetworks.net. Many top nonprofits, including Amnesty International USA, Human Rights Watch, Pew Charitable Trust, PETA International, the Humane Society International, and 30 separate Greenpeace country organizations globally all use the flexible benefits of the Engaging Networks online platform to raise money, win advocacy campaigns, and engage with supporters in a smart, highly targeted way. Now, you may remember that Clint has been with us, as I mentioned, several times. He spent 9 years leading the marketing and sales team very successfully at Care2. They have 26 million member online community people that are taking action to support many causes, and Clint helped them grow and grow into one of the leading providers in the nonprofit sector. He is in a former career. Clint worked as a news reporter, first in Washington, D.C., and later as a Moscow correspondent for AP and Newsweek, covering the breakup of the Soviet Union. Very exciting time, 1991 to 1993. He's a graduate of Brown University and the Wharton School of Business. He lives near Washington, D.C. Most importantly, Clint O'Brien is now with Engaging Networks, and he is live here with us on the Nonprofit Coach. Clint, welcome back here to the Nonprofit Coach.
Thanks, Ted. Always a pleasure.
Well, it's great to have you back. I know that we've wanted to have you back for quite some time, particularly with all the changes that we see, and that seems to be the constant in the online world for what's working and what's not working. So I do want to get into those details. We've got a lot to share with our audience today. But before we get there, give us some background information into what is Engaging Networks. You have a very impressive client base. Why have they chosen Engaging Networks?
Well, Engaging Networks has been around for 15 years and was already well known outside of North America prior to about 2008, 2009, when the company kind of relocated its home base to Washington, D.C., and began paying more attention to nonprofits here in the USA and Canada. But the company was founded back in the UK in the year 2000, and from the get-go was a digital platform for engaging with your supporters and donors through advocacy campaigns like petition campaigns, but also through email marketing and smart, highly personalized ways of getting your donors to share their thoughts with you. So it's a two-way conversation with your donors and your prospective donors. Early on, the software platform conquered the problem of how to cope with any language and any currency, which is turning out to be very important now to a lot of U.S.-based nonprofits that are kind of moving overseas. But on top of that, it's developed as just a really super highly innovative platform, very flexible and open for tying in different web applications in a very powerful and customizable way. So I would say particularly as more and more nonprofits are looking for what we call eCRMs, online CRM systems that can tie back to their database of record, their CRM, we've become a very popular choice.
Well, that, of course, is, I think, for a lot of listeners right now, as soon as they start hearing about, a great new platform that they should consider, even though Engaging Networks has been around for a while, has certainly been embedded in a lot of campaigns for a number of years. For a lot of my listeners, it's maybe a new voice, a new platform for them to consider, and immediately they start getting concerned about things being separate and different databases and more work, and how can I streamline. So talk a little bit more about how you folks have sort of cracked that code or make it possible for things to become more streamlined.
Well, that's a really important question for so many organizations, and for good reason. More and more nonprofits want to have a so-called 360-degree view of what their donors and supporters are doing. And that's pretty hard if your data is siloed off in lots of different databases. And so it's really one of the major problems that the technology sector has tackled in recent years. At Engaging Networks, it's pretty rare. I'd say only less than 10% of our clients use us as what we call the database of record, the master storehouse of data from all of your channels, including direct mail, including telemarketing, including street canvassing, and all the various channels that nonprofits use. Rather, the way that 9/10 of our clients use our software is as the online layer, the online engagement platform that plugs back into their database of record, but is the place where they do most of the online communication with their donors and prospects. And so the way you can cope with having two separate databases is to have a really tight integration between those databases where you are synchronizing the data back and forth between the two databases on a regular basis, usually a daily basis, but in some cases even more frequent than that. So that's something we've invested a lot of time and energy and thought into, and we have custom integrations with the big three donor databases of record, which, based on market share are the Blackbaud Razor's Edge, Salesforce.com, and Roy Solutions. So we have custom integrations for them. But we also have an open API, which a lot of your listeners know that refers to application programming interface. And that's basically a way to tie in theoretically to any other web application or any other database. But it does require, a one-time setup exercise that's not trivial for a lot of organizations, which is why we thought in the case of the big three we should have custom integrations that are all ready to go.
Well, and I think that certainly puts it within reach in terms of if I already have one of those platforms, the integration from your perspective is already there. Talk a little bit about those platforms like Blackbaud and others that have big client bases. I think certainly a lot of nonprofits are beginning to really look at Salesforce. Is it sort of a one-way partnership, or do you have specific partnerships in place with those platforms that makes it a two-way communication?
Well, it's interesting. We don't have a direct partnership in place with Blackbaud for the Razor's Edge integration, and we don't have a direct partnership with Salesforce to speak of, but we do have a pretty direct partnership in place with Roy Solutions, mainly because we have a number of clients in common, and that seems to be an increasing trend. But it's possible to build an integration that still works pretty tightly. In the case of Salesforce, we actually hired a third party that was already blessed by Salesforce to produce a really good integration. And so they built it for us, even though we own it and maintain it. And I guess the proof that they were blessed by Salesforce is that after they built the integration for us, they were actually acquired by Salesforce. So it doesn't get much more blessed than that. But yeah, I'd say that, fortunately, there are some third parties out there that are good at building tools that allow you to set up not only a synchronization between your databases, but to make that sync two-way and automatic if you want. So we're leveraging that, and I think the number of data integrations that a company like ours does just increases all the time because people are inventing new smart web applications all the time. And we really are not trying to be all things to all people. We're trying to specialize in what we think of as the big three for online engagement, and those are fundraising, advocacy, and email. And then to a lesser extent, different permutations of fundraising. So this year, for example, we're making a major move into peer-to-peer fundraising that we're very excited about. At the same time, though, we're trying to embed more and more functionality that is all about social media integration, and I know that's a topic that is near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, it's a topic that my listeners are keenly interested in because it seems to be a moving target. So I do want to get into some more of the specifics beyond sort of the platform itself and the integration, which I'm really glad that you have that sort of nailed down because I think that opens the door to have a further discussion. So before we get into the very specific types of things that you can do, let's take another step back and help us understand what are the trends that you're seeing in the way that charities are raising money online right now, and sort of couple with that what you see for 2015 as sort of the smart moves.
Sure. Well, I think that we've seen in the last couple of years a lot of nonprofits are starting to finally use the tools that were invented some years ago, but very few of the nonprofits were using them, and that was a big missed opportunity. And in particular, I'm talking about these high-leverage tools that can really move the needle in a big way on your fundraising results online. One of the most important ones of all is, in fact, mobile optimization of everything you do on your website and in your email. And by that I mean, more and more people, as we all know, are accessing websites through their smartphones and their tablets, like the iPad. And so if you haven't optimized your pages, your donation pages, your landing pages for petitions, landing pages for surveys or event registrations, anything, you will not see nearly the results that you would be seeing had you created a mobile optimized version. Some people call it mobile responsive version of those pages. And so, we invested a lot of resources in making it dirt simple for our clients to basically click an icon that automatically generates the code necessary to optimize the pages for mobile access. But a lot of nonprofits weren't doing that until recently. When they do it, they see dramatically increased completion rates on those pages, and so much higher fundraising results. And actually, last year there was a great article in Fundraising Success magazine, which I guess has just rebranded itself Nonprofit Pro. But Fundraising Success did a great article called Mobile Madness, co-authored by Karen Kirchhoff and Jeff Reagan, about our client, Humane Society International, and how they were able to increase online giving by 76% in a single year. And if you read the article, you see the main reason was simply optimizing their donation pages for mobile access and seeing terrifically higher results. So that's one of many examples of tools that I think took a while to catch on, but now people really get it because they can see the results from doing it.
Well, and I think that is a very, very important topic for you to bring up, because it's not just about website, but what we also don't want to send the message that your website isn't still important. It's just that the mobile platform and the ease of use and some of the standards that are expected is really something that is important if you're going to have a chance at really reaching your donors where they already are, not sort of where they're going, but where they are. And I'm glad that you mentioned Fundraising Success magazine, because the great folks over there, of course, are always very supportive here of the Nonprofit Coach. They always promote the Nonprofit Coach, and they did a nice job in promoting your participation here. So we do want to give a shout out to the great folks at Fundraising Success magazine, which you can find at fundraisingsuccessmag.com. So thank you, Clint, for opening that door.
Well, the other tool that we're starting to see many more clients finally using, not just talking about, is email triggers that allow you to set up an automated pre-programmed series of emails on a rolling basis. And the best example of that, the most powerful application of that, is the welcome series. When a new supporter signs up for a nonprofit's email list, it's really vital that they get a welcome response very quickly while it's still fresh in their mind that they signed up, but also a way to further deepen the engagement, hopefully in a two-way fashion, so that you're not just broadcasting information didactically out to the supporter, but you're also inviting them to comment, cast a vote, fill out a survey, and of course, make donations. And so the welcome series is an incredibly important tool for increasing conversion of supporters into donors. And for that matter, if done in a really sophisticated way, it's a great way to upsell a one-time donor into a recurring donor, like a monthly donor. So I would say the advent of email triggers, and more importantly, the fact that nonprofits are starting to use email triggers, is quite exciting on the landscape. And the same could be said for email split testing, which is, these are all tools we build into the software for clients, but just because it's there and you urge them to use it, it's no guarantee they're going to use it. So what's exciting is people starting to use these levers and seeing the results. And I guess actually, as long as I'm listing out these major levers, the other huge one is the power of segmenting your support base so that you can talk to them in a personalized way. Which manifests itself in software like ours in the ability to conditionalize the content, personalize the content, both in the outbound emails but also on the landing pages, so that you can pre-populate the data fields on a landing page with that particular supporter's unique information, not just their name, not just their contact information, maybe the last 4 digits of their credit card, but also the proper ask string. You can dynamically have that content adjust for the fact that this may be a high-dollar donor that historically has given you thousands of dollars a year. That's not a donor you want to be offering the chance to donate $10 or $20 or $30 to. And conversely, if they're a low-dollar donor, you don't want to be asking them to donate $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 to you. So the ability to have it right there in the software, the ability to leverage the information you've already collected on an individual supporter and stored in your database, and have it dictate the information that's displayed in real time is incredibly powerful. And now you see more and more nonprofits availing themselves of that powerful tool.
Well, and isn't this going right back to sort of the basic core value of personalization and making your donors feel connected to your organization, that they're not just a number, they're not just a checkbook, and a lot of what you're talking about, back a decade ago, were sort of some of the central themes of how to succeed in direct mail. And now that your donors have moved to the online space and they have you literally in the palm of their hands, they don't want to be treated like a number there either.
Exactly. It's really the same core principle applied to these other media, but it hasn't changed. You're trying to show your appreciation for the donor. You're trying to serve up the right information to the right person at the right time, to this whole one-to-one marketing dream, fulfilled. And what makes it possible are these digital tools. But you're right. At the core, it's no different from the kind of time-honored principles that somebody who works with major donors has observed for decades. Getting research on an individual donor so that they can talk to that person in a knowledgeable way that honors the donation and the support that they're getting from that person.
So in thinking about future campaigns and helping my listeners today put all of this together, what are the different approaches that nonprofits are taking in terms of linking online and offline in various different campaigns? Is it all the same look and feel? Are there different rules, or what are you seeing in terms of the 2015 success in this environment?
Well, I think that as much as possible, the successful nonprofits, the ones who do fundraising in a very powerful way, are creating that 360-degree view of each donor and each prospective donor, and they're doing it by collecting the data that they need through a variety of sources, and now more and more of that information is coming through social media, and storing it back in the database in a master record that can be synced up with digital software like ours, so that you have all that information at your fingertips and can make maximum use of it. And I think that the tools are very helpful, but so is the burgeoning understanding or realization on the part of nonprofits that you can increase your results using these tools, because some of these tools have been around for a while, and yet they weren't being used widely. So now they're being used much more widely. I think that it's now possible to synchronize databases and do very sophisticated segmentation and create segments or profiles. Actually, in our software we call them profiles, but it's the same idea, based not only on demographics or on highest previous donation, but also on psychographics. The obvious example in the animal welfare world would be you figure out who are your supporters who love puppies and who are the ones who love kittens, and serve up photos and copy blocks accordingly that are going to be the most appealing to that particular supporter. And I think of it kind of as like a sort of more benign or benevolent stalking of your supporters in order to get more knowledge about them, but then to conversely give them more valuable information that they care about with more relevance to them, so that they can have a deeper level of engagement with your organization. I think, this year in particular, I'm looking to see a lot more organizations come up with sophisticated segmentation strategies. And, it used to be if you wanted to create, let's say, 10 different segments of your donor base, and then you wanted to send out an email to them, you'd probably build it as 10 separate email campaigns. And that's highly inefficient and laborious for your staff. Well, now you don't have to do that.
And likely to create a scenario for error.
Very, very true, exactly. And, you want to reduce the potential for human error as much as possible. The great news is that the tools make that unnecessary now. I mean, you can literally create one campaign that has varying copy blocks of text within it, varying graphics, varying photos, and varying subject lines, for your email. And, of course, it's personalized, so it's going to say, Dear Ted, thanks for your previous donation. We thought you would find this of interest. And then serve up a message that's highly suited to you in particular, Ted. So now you can do all that dynamically. It's happening on the fly, in real time. It doesn't require 10 separate campaigns. It's just one campaign. And the reporting is there now, too. Certainly in our software and some of the other platforms that are out there, you can do very granular, very visual reporting of what's happening when you are communicating with your supporters. You can see not only click-through, but completion rates. You can see which particular content they're interacting with the most. You can see how often. You can make judgments about the level of their engagement and responsiveness based on how frequently they respond. And it's all, getting very easy to do for those nonprofits that care enough to invest themselves to learn these tools, and they'll see great results from doing it. So I think that power of segmentation is something we're going to see expressed more and more. I also think that social media is finally kind of turning the corner and becoming a valid fundraising channel for nonprofits. I hasten to add, I think it's still a tiny fraction of what you can do in terms of fundraising results from email, which is still the king of digital fundraising. But it's no longer nothing. It's no longer trivial. You can get some meaningful results directly through social media, and you can get lots of meaningful results indirectly through social media by sort of the combination effects with traditional fundraising.
Clint, I want to thank you for saying that, because we've been saying that on this show for quite some time, and I want to come back and I want to really focus in more on that topic of email is still king, social media is on the rise. It's the integration of online and offline that you're going to find success, because I think a lot of my listeners, and it's not faulting them at all, because I think a lot of people are always looking for the silver bullet. Excuse me, just tell me what to buy, tell me what button to push, and the money will come flowing in. And it takes real strategy to think through that, and I know you know that, and I want you to share that with our listening audience today as soon as we come back from this break. Just want to remind listeners today that we go on a little bit of a early New Year break due to travel and a number of different conferences that I need to be at. I've got some international travel to London and a number of different places that I need to be. So what that means is that the Nonprofit Coach will be on hiatus following today's show, coming back, though, with the big 5th anniversary show. So we will be back live here on the Nonprofit Coach March 31st for the big 5th anniversary show, if you can believe that. 5 years of the Nonprofit Coach. So mark your calendar. But between now and then are great opportunities. We will send out reminders each week just to give you the opportunity to get caught up on a lot of really terrific, and of course we have hundreds of podcasts, all available free on all different types of topics relating to nonprofit management, fundraising, both online and offline, board management, fundraising via foundation grants, corporate giving, online, direct mail. So you name it, we have podcasts, and they're all available at tedhart.com. So mark your calendar. March 31st, we will be back here live here on the Nonprofit Coach with the 5th anniversary show.
Every day, millions of people are online, many of whom want to help, volunteer, and donate to a good cause. Nonprofit organizations can use many Google tools to reach potential donors around the world and raise more money. And as an approved nonprofit, it doesn't cost a thing. It's all free. Google Grants helps you promote your website with free advertising on Google.com through the AdWords program. With Google AdWords, you create ads and choose words or phrases related to your nonprofit organization. When people search on Google using one of your phrases, your ad will appear next to the Google search results under the Sponsored Links section. AdWords allows you to target certain geographic areas, dates, and times of day for your ads to appear. YouTube for Nonprofits is another tool that can boost donations to your organization. The program offers a number of perks that get your message out there and drive viewers to take action and donate. You can list your organization on YouTube's nonprofit channel and add call-to-action overlays on your videos to drive viewers to donate. Need help analyzing your website traffic and marketing effectiveness? Google Analytics is a free tool that will give you rich insight and help you increase the number of people that visit and donate to your site. Google Analytics can be invaluable to many people in your organization, such as development directors, marketing staff, and your web team. There are many other tools that can help you reach more donors and raise funds, like Google Checkout, where you can process credit card donations with no transaction fee, Google Sites to create a free website, and Website Optimizer, where you can figure out the best landing pages to turn site visitors into donors. To get started, apply for Google for Nonprofits today.
Remember, our podcasts and archives are always available 24 hours a day at tedhart.com. Click on Radio Links. If you're listening live today, the phone lines are open. Call in and ask a question by dialing 347-324-3080. Now, back to the Nonprofit Coach with Ted Hart.
And we're back here live with Clint O'Brien from EngagingNetworks.net. Clint, before we went on the break, you sort of put the very smart statement out there that, for all the things that we discuss and everything that's written about social media, Facebook, other social network opportunities for nonprofit organizations, email is still the most important digital tool for nonprofits. Talk to me about why that is, and then the integration of these tools and what we're seeing in terms of the emerging opportunities, but not yet the dominant opportunities in social media.
Sure. Well, so I'm as excited as the next person about the potential of social media and some of the early results that are already being seen from social media. But it's not even close to compare what you can do from your social media efforts to what you can do from your email efforts. Email is the king, and I don't mean by a little. I mean it's by 10 times more powerful. That was true during the famous Obama campaign in 2008 and again in 2012, where the bulk of the money they raised was not from their website, not from social media. It was from email, good old-fashioned email. And that's still true, for most nonprofits who are listening today and who understand this from their own experience. That said, I would say social media loves email and email loves social media. And a lot of the benefit you can see from social media depends on getting good at engaging people first through Facebook and Twitter and maybe YouTube, but then as quickly as possible trying to lever them into signing up for your email list, because as a conversion channel, email is far more powerful. And in fact, on Facebook, which is, of all the social media channels by far the most important, on Facebook it's gotten increasingly hard to engage meaningfully with people, at least through the organic methods that we used to depend on. And that's for the simple reason that Facebook keeps changing the rules, and they own the real estate, so they control the rules. And when they change them, the organic reach of your content that you post for free on Facebook plummets. And that's certainly been the experience of a lot of nonprofits. So, email remains really, really much more important, but there's a nice synergy, a nice combination effect from being clever in the way you use email and social media together. And certainly a lot of the early successes that some nonprofits have seen in social media have come about because of understanding that principle.
And in understanding that principle for the listeners that we have today, what's sort of the step-by-step approach that you would recommend for 2015 in terms of maximizing email, but then maybe making this the year where you have some smart integration that begins if you've been meaning to do it, or you're caught in sort of that cycle with Facebook in particular that you once had some traction, their rule changes have now made that less valuable to you?
Yeah, I mean, the principle I've heard articulated is own your own data. Don't let Mark Zuckerberg own your data. And that means, as quickly as possible, try to create a new way of communicating with your social media followers, and email is still the best way, because with email, they're giving you permission to be in their private inbox, potentially every day. That's just incredibly powerful. So as quickly as possible, you try to get them into the email bucket. But in the meantime, there's a lot of powerful ways of communicating through Facebook and Twitter and increasingly YouTube, Google+. I would say at a minimum, nonprofits should be making it easy for their supporters and donors to share actions with that particular supporter's followers or friends in the other social media. So, for example, in our software, when you're building an email in our dashboard, there are icons you can easily insert for Facebook and Twitter and Google+, so that when your supporter makes a donation or maybe signs a petition or takes some other action, all they have to do is click on that icon, let's say the Facebook icon, and share that action with all of their Facebook friends, or their tribe. And we actually take it a step beyond that, because we think nonprofits shouldn't care so much about high reach through social media, which might give them a false picture of who their most important influential supporters are, but rather they should be focused on the results when a particular supporter shares through Facebook or social media. Results count so much more, so why not track results? So what we do is, with our software, we're storing a unique Oracle ID every time one of your supporters, one of your nonprofit organization supporters, shares on Facebook, so that if a friend of that person were to now see that share and click through and make a similar donation, you could tie it back to the first supporter. You would know, that was Ted Hart. When he shared on Facebook, 10 people clicked through and made subsequent donations. So now you've identified that Ted Hart is a true influencer, not just based on a high reach on Facebook, but more importantly based on the results when he shares. The example I like to give is comparing myself to my daughter, who's just turned 18. She makes me look like a piker when it comes to the number of Facebook followers. She has, I think, 3,000 Facebook friends, and I have a couple hundred. But if she were to share the fact that she donated to your nonprofit with her tribe, very little would happen, because most of her friends are young and don't have income and probably not a history of donating to nonprofits. Whereas the old fuddy-duddy me, if I share, most of my friends are old geezers like me who have donated to nonprofits and have some income and care about tax deductions and things like that. So I'm your true influencer, not my daughter, and you need to know that. You need to identify that and track it, and then serve up content accordingly by recognizing that I'm really valuable to your organization, so you can cater to me in special, powerful ways.
One of the things that we've discussed on this show, and those who are listening who have been to some of my lectures, I refer to those true influencers as your Aunt Mabels. Those people, who are listened to and followed by other people, and can take your content and share that with people that are likely to actually read it and take action. And the special attention that you need to provide to your Aunt Mabels, or I guess your Uncle Clints, who are out there, that to reach out to them, to even possibly meet with them in person, just as you would in a regular campaign. Those of influence become those who can help make your campaign successful, because it's not just who you are able to reach yourself, but it's who you can reach through your network.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you talked about how it's a moving target. It very much is. Years ago in our software, we would monitor the usage by our clients of what they were doing, and when they would build an email campaign, they would use the email tell a friend feature, and give that prime position in the email. Now we're seeing less and less of that, and rather our clients are using the Facebook share icon and the Twitter share icon, the Google Plus share icon. That's where virality increasingly is coming from. It's coming from social media as opposed to spreading the word through email. So, there's an exception to every general statement, and while I still believe email is by far the more powerful channel, there's a definite, turning of the corner that's happening with many, many nonprofit supporters right now.
Well,
I do want to say, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, so the story here for 2015 is how to successfully use social media as a prompt and a feeder, as opposed to being your campaign itself.
Exactly, and as an engagement tool, as a way to simply deepen your level of engagement, or to use the old metaphor we're familiar with, moving your supporters up the ladder of engagement, or pyramid of engagement, or double helix of engagement, whatever you choose to call it. This is a really powerful way to do that, and probably there's no better example in recent history than the Ice Bucket Challenge. I don't know about you, Ted, but I first heard about the Ice Bucket Challenge when a friend of mine on Facebook called me out, among three people he was calling out. He said, I just dumped this bucket on my head. Now I call out Clint O'Brien to do the same and make a donation to the ALS Association. So guess what? Without social media, ALS would not have gotten my donation, and I would not have humiliated myself in front of my kids and my friends with the Ice Bucket.
And they made it fun, and they made it interesting, and it truly was viral. But let's bring that down to sort of real-world terms. How likely is it that kind of lightning in a bottle is going to happen again anytime soon?
Well, precisely. I think, there were so many ingredients present to make that lightning happen that it's going to be really hard for other nonprofits to replicate that model. It's one of the grand exceptions that proves the rule. But, it was an option precisely because of social media, and it would not have been nearly as easy for any nonprofit to create a viral sensation like that in the days before social media. So, I do think, that's not sort of a high percentage strategy for most nonprofits, but I think we can all learn the lesson, which is to say if you have a great cause and a great symbol, like the man who started that whole campaign, and you have a way to spread it very visually and captivatingly, in a peer-to-peer sense, that's a whole lot of power. And the broader statement could be made about social media in general, that peer-to-peer fundraising, which had already been established and very successful for decades before the advent of Facebook and other social media, is now that much more powerful because it is amplified through social media. When you do a run, walk, or ride event to raise money and you're trying to hit up your friends and family to donate to the cause, how handy is it that you can just go on Facebook and broadcast to them or tweet out to your friends? I mean, it's a great extension of an older tool that powerfully amplifies it, and I think that's really true of social media in general.
Well, and I think what's so powerful about your message is this is something that you and I have been, saying for, almost since the advent of online and social media, and we've both been there since the beginning. Is that these are extensions of tried and true relationship building tools, and it's understanding that yes, these are new tools, and there are new techniques that allow you to wield the power of these tools. But the baseline is it's still about bringing people together into a sense of community and giving them an opportunity to care about that community by making a donation, participating in advocacy, but nonetheless coming together and building a relationship.
Exactly. And social media is a great way to, build the donor's propensity to give. If you can successfully engage people on social media, they're much more likely to give when you email them, for example. Or, of course, you can run the fundraising campaigns in both media simultaneously, both channels. You'll see more results through email, but chances are, if those people are also downstream of your social media messages, they're much more likely to give. And certainly, on an anecdotal basis, that's what a lot of nonprofits are now starting to report. And there's also an attribution challenge internally within a nonprofit organization, because somebody might start out as a supporter who first becomes aware of the nonprofit through social media, let's say through the Facebook page, but then they eventually sign up for the email list, and 6 months later they finally make their first donation. Should that donation be credited to the email channel, or should it be credited to social media? The entry point was social media. The conversion point was email. So I would say that's a classic example of a combination effect where the two channels are working together quite nicely. It's less important who you attribute it to, but you have to recognize that both played an important role.
Well, and I think what also you said that's very powerful and important is this is about the long view. And yes, particularly in larger organizations, it matters sort of where it came from or sort of where the credit goes to. But I sort of tend to come from the school of thought that all ships rise together, and it's the integration of all these tools. It's not to say, well, Facebook is going to make all the difference here, or email is necessarily going to make all the difference, and so we can get rid of direct mail. All of those tools working together, and all those tools need to change as your strategy evolves. But it's not the case that any one of them is more powerful than the other if you have an integrated strategy.
Correct, and it's also important to develop content marketing skills for all these channels. There's a guy, Sean Dakin, who's really good at producing content, and he preaches this gospel all the time, that it's all about creative content marketing. For that matter, some of your listeners may know Michael Hoffman from C3 Communications, and he's very high on the power of video, which they've now tested with some of their clients to significantly, and I mean like quadruple the results when you integrate video. But even Michael admits that on Facebook nowadays the organic reach has been so reduced that if you release a video on Facebook and you're not going to buy some paid ads on Facebook around it, or maybe some paid sponsored posts on Facebook, don't bother. Your video is not going to do anything special. It's not going to go viral. But if you are willing to properly support it, the creative content in that video could produce dramatic results. And so whether it's text-based creative content or video-based or something else, it does assume that you're good at content marketing and you figured out a way to make that dovetail with fundraising.
Well, and in dovetailing that, talk a little bit about because we're now starting to get to the last segment of the show here. We have about 12 minutes left, and I know that the issue of advocacy is one that your platform has particular expertise in. Not all of our listeners are going to necessarily be involved in sort of true advocacy of a political nature, but those tools also build community in different ways.
Well, absolutely. Actually, our company until 2008 was called Advocacy Online, and that was our primary focus. And it's still a really important, focus. I mentioned that for us, the Holy Trinity is fundraising, advocacy, and email marketing. And so we're trying to, always be best in class in all three of those areas. But, from my time at Care2 in particular, what I learned countless times with countless organizations was the power of combining advocacy and fundraising. I think that's pretty well known here in the United States and Canada. It's getting better known in the UK and some other markets. But basically, the statistics show that someone who's willing to take an online action for you, such as signing a petition, is something like 7 times more likely to go on and make a donation if you ask them than someone who does not take that action for you first. And even if you control for past donations by excluding from the sample any past donors, the multiple is still about 4 to 1, where that action taker is 4 times more likely to donate. So clearly, your advocacy supporters are potential donors, just as conversely, your donors are potential advocacy action takers for you. So there's no reason to silo that side of your organization off from the fundraising side, because really they can work really well together. Kind of like chocolate and peanut butter tasting great together. It's kind of that sort of situation. That said, there are plenty of successful fundraising nonprofits that don't do advocacy, and many of them are our clients. And they've found other creative ways to engage with their clients beyond, advocacy. If you are not an advocacy-based organization, you create other ways to create a sense of urgency. Certainly, again, looking back at the ALS example of the Ice Bucket Challenge, the urgency is around the fact that very little dollars are being spent to cure this horrible disease. The person who started the campaign was dying of the disease, or actually was a good friend of someone who was dying. And, that's a way to create urgency, too. So nonprofits don't have to be advocacy-based to see great results online, but it is pretty darn helpful if you do advocacy. It's true.
But what if you're not engaged directly in advocacy? Are those principles still centered around sort of the meeting point of good content and building relationships?
Exactly. I mean, the word it's in the title of our company, Engaging Networks. The engagement is the key. Don't make me, as your donor, feel like I'm just a wallet to you. I'm just an ATM. Make me feel like I'm special, like you care what I think, because chances are I'm supporting you for very important reasons, important to me anyway. Maybe a member of my family or a good friend of mine was affected by a disease or by an injustice, and so I appreciate your organization is supporting that cause, advancing that cause. That's a very heartfelt, passionate thing for me. So I need to be talked to in a personal way where I feel as if you care about what I think, and the proof is you're asking me what I think. It's a two-way conversation. So it's about engagement fundamentally, and that's certainly not limited to advocacy organizations.
Well, and it's that two-way communication that I think freaks out a lot of nonprofit organizations, because while there's no doubt that they desire the money to be able to support the mission of the organization, it's the capacity or the genuine interest in having a relationship that is a two-way relationship that I think opens up a whole new perspective for a lot of nonprofit organizations, particularly leadership. Maybe not the fundraising team, maybe not the public relations team who sort of get the relationship aspect, but what about beyond that, and making the case throughout the organization that that's where the true value comes from and where the true engagement comes from?
Well, exactly. And again, circling back to social media, that's what's so powerful and intriguing about social media is now there are listening tools. And you've probably heard of some of them. One of the ones I'm very familiar with is Attentively, which is a listening tool. And I have a good friend there, Roz Lemieux, who I was talking to in anticipation of coming on with you about kind of the philosophy she's developed on social media. And these tools allow you to not just listen to your supporters, but to then tag people in your CRM database based on their interests so that you now know what is going to appeal to them, what are their hot buttons, what kind of personalized content is going to really resonate with them. And that's true for fundraising, but it's also true for any other form of support that you might be looking for from this person. It might be to sign a petition, or it might be to turn out for a rally, it might be to volunteer for your organization, or to come to a local event that you're having. And, by virtue of collecting information not only on your website now, but through Facebook and through Twitter and Google Plus and YouTube, this is becoming really powerful. It also has the potential, of course, to become a little creepy, so you have to be sensitive to that factor. But you can not only store the information, but retrieve it at the right moment and use that information that's in your database. Incredibly powerful stuff.
Yeah, I think it's about, and certainly you don't want to start moving into sort of the creepy factor, but I think it's more a factor of respect in that your donors are investing in you, they're investing in your mission, they care about your organization, and your capacity to return that favor by respecting the relationship, deepening the relationship, and respecting their point of view on whatever aspect of your mission is most important to them, I think really spells the difference between success and failure. Exactly.
And, I should also at this point give a shout-out to another technology company in the space called Action Sprout. A number of nonprofits have found that Action Sprout has helped them design engaging actions on Facebook, because they're kind of Facebook specialists, to then further recruit people and eventually get them to sign up for email lists. A friend of mine, John Stahl, is now at Philanthropy Northwest, but he used to be with Action Sprout, and I was chatting with him about this topic, and I had already heard, even back when I was at Care 2, that Action Sprout was starting to get some traction as an acquisition channel. I think it's important to manage expectations. I think the quantity of supporters and donor prospects you can acquire through these channels is still quite modest, just as it to some nonprofits, it's still a pretty modest quantity you can get through Google search advertising and the Google Grants program. But the fact that the numbers are still modest doesn't mean you should sit back and ignore them. It means now's a good time to get in there and experiment, and allocate some resources, understanding that that's not where you're going to see your major benefit, but that you need to understand these things because they are growing in importance and the results are growing too. So now's a great time, I think, for a lot of organizations to get used to these new acquisition channels, but more importantly, to get used to these new social media as engagement channels and allocate their investments accordingly. I still, I'm biased, of course, because of my time at Care 2, but I know, based on my experience there at Care 2, that form of acquisition is, can deliver much higher results because of the quantity along with the quality. And that's the quantity is still in most cases lacking in social media, but on the other hand, you can acquire lots of really interesting information about your existing supporters through social media, which is long term incredibly important.
And again, it goes back to respecting the relationship and treating each of these individual donors where they have an individual relationship with your charity. You need to, and oftentimes it requires the smart use of technology, return that favor by treating them as individuals and respecting their particular interest and point of view as it relates to the mission of your organization. Clint, we just have 3 minutes left, so I do want to ask you to wrap up the show with best tips for 2015 success, and then make sure that my listeners know how they can reach you.
Sure. Well, I'll start with the easy bit, which is how to reach me. I'm at Clint. My email address is clint@engagingnetworks.net, clint@engagingnetworks.net. They could also just come to our website, and our phone numbers are there, including for our Washington, D.C. headquarters. Or they can tweet me at Clinton O'Brien is my Twitter handle. I think it's really important for nonprofits to do a couple of things before they embark on a big social media fundraising strategy. One of them is good old-fashioned market research of who your best donors and supporters are, surveying them, analyzing the information you have already stored in your database about them, because if you can understand what has succeeded for you up to now, you can better go forth and find more people like them, which is always a more powerful strategy than trying to pioneer new segments that don't already have some organic, natural appeal for your mission and message. So I would start with the market research, something that they drilled into us in business school. Understand who your customers are. In this case, the nonprofit setting, understand who your supporters and donors are. The other thing I would do is figure out what are your important metrics, because it's easy to get led astray and follow vanity metrics. We were talking before about how sheer reach can be a vanity metric that ultimately is not important. It's just kind of beguiling. What matters is the results that you can achieve. But that's going to be different for every organization. There's the obvious fundraising results, but there might be advocacy-oriented results. There might be volunteer-oriented results. Also, you have to consider your other channels, because a lot of these leads are going to be best converted through direct mail or telemarketing, and so you need to think about the interplay between your various channels. But if you can settle on what those metrics are and establish in your software, hopefully good software like ours that has really powerful reporting capabilities, you can do the analysis and the tracking so that you can continually optimize your strategies as you go. I mean, that's one of the glories of the Internet and digital tools in general, is that you can fail fast and fail forward and keep going. And so failure is no longer
learn from the data and utilize the data, but don't get too hung up in it. Don't try to have 50 levels of matrix when you really need to nail 3 of them. Clint O'Brien from EngagingNetworks.net, thank you so much for being with us. I hope that perhaps you'll have time to call in to the 5th anniversary show. That is when we will be live back here on the Nonprofit Coach. That is on March 31st. And I invite all of my guests between now and then, all my listeners, to please catch up with podcasts you might have missed. They're all available at tedhart.com, and I will be back with you next month. Everyone, take care. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Nonprofit Coach Radio Show with Ted Hart. Tell all your friends to check out our production schedule and download our iPod and iPad-friendly podcast at tedhart.com. Thanks for listening to the Nonprofit Coach.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. Take control with Reputation Defender. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-811-4975 to speak to an expert.
Top reasons your career wants you to move to Ohio. So many amazing growth opportunities, high-paying jobs in technology, advanced manufacturing, engineering, life sciences, and more. You'll soar to new heights, just like the Wright brothers, John Glenn, even Neil Armstrong. Their careers all took off in Ohio, and yours can too. A job that can take you further, and a place you can't wait to come home to. Have it all in the heart of it all. Launch your search at callohiohome.com.